getting started on the optics is, some of the big factors to really consider as far as what you're looking at or what you're going to do is what and where do you hunt? How often are you going to be using this glass, and where are you going to be using this glass? Is it going to be, here to 200 yards? Are you going to be out west glassing, 1,000 yards? Or are you going to glass for hours and hours? We were just out in Arizona on a javelina hunt, and we were glassing those little javelina at 400, 500, 600 yards and farther, and we would look for literally 6, 7 hours a day while we were trying to glass these. So glass there compared to here was a whole different glass and difference that we would use. The part of it is for eye strain and different things. So we're going to touch base on that and where you're going to use those. What weapons, do you use? Are you shooting a, 223 for varmint? Are you going to use a 270, a 30-06, 308, something like that as far as using that for deer hunting? Are you going to use a 7 mag for out west or a 300 mag or something like that? Are you going to shoot an AR for your coyotes, or just are you going to have that to have an AR? How are you going to set that up? Like my ARs are set up completely different depending on what they're used for. So my one AR has a Strike Eagle on it with a 45 offset red dot. My other one has UH1 on it. So one of them's for coyote and one of them's just for plinking and having fun. And so what are you using it for? And then the big thing is, what is your budget? Because if you look at that budget and you say, well, I really want to put, a $3,000 scope on it, but you can only afford a $200 scope. Well, then you really have to sit back and relook at things and what is your best money spent for your needs. And that's kind of what we're going to cover, because truly you can't shoot what you can't see. And so it does you no good to go out and try to glass something at a long distance if you can't see what that is. And out west, I don't know if you guys have hunted out west much, but if you do, it's not necessarily the power, it's the clarity and the dawn and the dusk. And the reason for that is you do a lot of glassing out there because you don't want to chase after something you don't even want to go after for, 2-3 miles through the mountains. You want to glass it, make sure it's something that you even want to make a plan to go hunt. So, again, you can't shoot what you can't see, and you don't want to waste an entire day chasing something that you don't want to shoot. So, I just keep skipping. All right. So, looking at your binoculars, we're going to start out with your binoculars. And what the big difference when you're looking at these, side by side, the two different types, there's, your roof prism and your poral prism. Well, most people use your roof prism. Why? Because it's a compact design and it's a little more durable. They're not going to break as easy because they don't have as many bends and twists in them as your poral prism does. The difference or the better thing with a poral prism and why you see a lot of those smaller is for a lot of your youth, and they're a less expensive binocular to make. So because of that, they put those in a lot of youth models. And the biggest reason is because they have a narrow interpupillary distance. That interpupillary distance, so when you close that binocular up tight, what the distance is between one pupil to the other to look through it. So a lot of times what happens is guys will buy binoculars or they'll get binoculars, they'll look through them, And as they look through them, they get either black around the edges, or they can only see, half of the view. Well, part of that reason is because that pupillary distance isn't correct on their face. So it's either too wide, and so they're only catching part of that view where they need to actually bring it narrower. So even on the compact, the roof prisms, you really want to look when you're looking through those is what closes close enough if your interpupillary distance is too small. Okay, so if you're getting that halo or that different effect that you're not getting the whole field of view, and you're getting goofy things, it could be one, you don't have the eye cups turned out if you don't wear glasses, or if you wear glasses, you don't have the eye cups turned in. And if you do have those and you're getting that, it's probably that interpupillary distance. So look at a chart then of what roof prisms go very small. Again, if it's too small, then you have to go to the poral prisms. Again, most youth end up using a poral prism, and that's why they have those. So that's your big difference when you're looking at the two different types of binoculars that are out there. And then you look at the size. This is a huge question we get all the time. What does the numbers on these binoculars really mean? Well, there's a couple different things that it means. The first thing is your power. So the first number on the bino is always the power. So if it's 5, 7, 8, 10, there's some 15s, there's some 18s out there. So that is whatever that is times the naked eye. So it's 8 times stronger, 10 times stronger. The second is going to be your objective size. So the size in millimeter of objective on the lens side, which affects your overall binocular size, because on the end of that, you go to a 42 is your standard on most binoculars. Then you can go to a 50. You can go all the way down to a 28. There's 32s. There's 56s. And what that second number does is that's a light gathering capability. Okay. But when you put the two numbers together, it really changes the light capacity. And so that's why you look at guys that want more light but want more power end up going to like a 50. So that's why a lot of guys out west will run that 50 or 56, because they want that early morning, late night, but they also want that power. And the reason for that is right here. So your light gathering ability is what your exit pupil is. So if you look at this chart, so if you take a 8 power by your 28, then you look at that, and I think it's 28, it might be 25s. I don't have my glasses on, sorry. And then that turns to your 3.1 as your exit. Well, that's not a lot of light gathering. That's why dusk and dawn, it starts getting smaller or darker and darker all the time. Now, if you look at your 842 compared to a 1042, now on an 8, you have 5.2 compared to a 4.2. So you're going to let a lot more light in on that 8 power. That's why you look at a lot of birders. They like an 8 power. The reason is because it lets in more light. It gives them more distinct of that color of those birds morning and night. And so they can get that light gathering on there. So what you want to do then is why out west, obviously that exit pupil, that number will go up if you take that 50 and divide that by that 10. Now you're at a 5.0. So you're almost the same or back up to that 8 by 42 in a 10 power binocular. The difference is you're going to have a little bit more weight to it and a little bit more bulkiness. So when you get into a lot of the guys that glass a lot are running 1856s or 1556s. Why? Again, to let that light in, because you take that and divide that by that number, that will give you your exit pupil. That will give you how much light gathering ability that it has. Now, there's greater things above that light gathering when you start talking about lenses and glass and different optics. And that's kind of what we're going to get into here in a second. But right now, does anybody have any questions up till right now? I'll give you just a second. If you have any questions up to now on any of this stuff with the light gathering or anything like that. And I do have a question coming in, so we'll hang on for just a second here. So the 1056, yeah, that is going to be a lot bulkier, just because you're going to have, instead of a 42 millimeter out at the end, you're going to have a 56. So that is the distance across from one side to the other. So instead of your 42, you're going to have 56. So it is going to be a lot bulkier. So again, a lot of guys split that difference and they'll go to a 10 to 50 instead of that 56. And what a lot of the binocular manufacturers have done, and Vortex is one of the first ones to do it, instead of making that entire barrel start back at your eyes and go out wider, what it does is they keep that barrel the same most of the way out, and then it flares just at the end to get that extra light gathering and that 50 out at the end. So it is a little bit bulkier, but it's not as great as what it used to be 5-6 years ago when they started changing them. So I run personally for a lot of my stuff. I run 1250s or 1050s. If I'm hunting around here, I do a lot of my 1050s. If I'm doing that cross out west and here, then I'll run a 1050. But I like the 50s. It is a little bit more bulky, but it gives me that power plus a lot more light gathering capabilities. So crossing over into your spotting scopes now, and we'll get, like I said, we'll get into glass a little bit later for that light gathering and stuff. But spotting scopes, the same thing. What they are is these are great for your long distance or high volume scouting. They're 3 to 5 times more powerful than your binoculars, but they do require either a tripod or a window mount. The biggest thing with a spotting scope is, again, they run in price range, and that all has to do with glass, but most of them come in either a 65 or an 85. If you have the capability for that 85 to either pack that 85, to put it in your car, your house, whatever, because most of them are running either a 20 to 60 power or up into the upper 50s. Some of them are even up to 80 power now. That 85 millimeter objective is going to make a world of difference right at the end of the day and right in the beginning of the morning. So around here, I go to the 85. Now, for my packing one that I use out west, I actually use the Vortex, the small razor. It's an 11 by 33 power by 50. So it's a small, it's a 50 millimeter, but it's got the high-end razor glass in it, but it's a very, very super lightweight, small spotting scope. And I use that when I'm out west, because even if I've got a 12 power binocular, it's still 3 times more powerful. Okay. Well, if I go 3 times more powerful, that helps me out a lot, but it's a lot less weight to pack. I can take a lot lighter and smaller tripod with me and get that in my pack. I also like a angled over a straight for when I'm out west, because what I like to do is I'll sit down, I'll put a pack behind my back so I can lean back and relax on the side of a mountain for glassing. I can glass with my binoculars, and then I can put them down and I can instantly just lean into that angled spotting scope. When I lean into that angled spotting scope, then that, if I do that, I don't have to move and I can pick that animal up a lot easier. If you can only buy one spotting scope and have access, I'll tell people to go to a straight. It's a little more difficult out there because then you have to raise that spotting scope and try to refine that animal. However, when you come back trying to use an angled out of a car, especially in this area, Midwest, it's very difficult because you put it in there and then you got to have it sideways and you can never find anything, or it's too high in your vehicle. So a straight works a lot better for inside your vehicle or off your deck. If you're a long-range shooter, it's nice just to put next to you so you're at the same height. You can go right from this to lean over and look through that to see where you're hitting, sighting in rifle scopes, things like that. Again, for out west, for just sitting on the side of a mountain, that angled is nice, but if you had to pick one, I would go with the straight. And that's just from all the years of messing around with all the different ones. If you're going to do a lot of packing, that small 11 to 33 is great. If you're going to do it once a year, you look at that 85 and you suck it up for, 7 days or 10 days while you're out there, and you run with that because you're going to like that a lot more when you get back here for glassing out of your truck or glassing off your deck or out of your house or even sighting in rifles. Going with that 85, especially in dawn and dusk. So again, a good window mount or a tripod to be used with that because they are so much more powerful. And they'll also, in the summer and the heat, you'll pick up some of those heat waves. As you'll see them coming across as you're looking through, you'll see those in your view. So it just helps to be that much more steady when you're looking through that. And then, so now we've covered your binoculars and your rifles or in your spotting scopes. Basically, for out west, what are you looking for in those two things? Like I said, more power, bigger objective lenses, higher end glass. And we're going to break down the glass here in a little bit, in your budget, obviously. But now your rifle scopes, if we're starting to get into your rifle scopes when you're heading out west, or if you're hunting here, what kind of gun are you shooting? You look at a tube size, and one of the biggest misconceptions is because you have a 1-inch, a 30 millimeter, 34, 36. So your tube size can be different in all those. If you look at it and you pay attention to it, real close attention to it, as you start getting into the real high-end rifle scopes, the tube size gets bigger. Then you get into your 30s or your 34s. And we do have a few of the lesser expensive ones in the 32. A lot of people believe that was for light gathering. And it really isn't. The tube size has nothing to do with light gathering. That, again, is all on the bell size, whether it's a 40 millimeter, a 32, a 56. There's all kinds of different sizes you can get out there. What it truly is for your travel and adjustability. So when you look at that, your long-range shooters, if you only have a 1-inch tube, that only has from here to here for adjustability when you're turning that turret to try to get that, for your distance. The problem is, if that will not go in there and do that, then what happens is the adjustability isn't great enough. So a 30 millimeter tube or a 34 millimeter tube gives you a lot more adjustability in there. Okay, so you can reach out those 1,000-yard guys, 1,500-yard guys. They want that 34 millimeter tube, that 36 millimeter, because 35, they want that big tube so they can get that adjustability without having to run offset rings, which they'll still have to do offset rings a lot. But if you're not a long-range shooter, that's a whole different ballgame that we could talk all night on. And so that's what it truly is for, and it's also for your ring torque. So when you look at your torque on those, a 30 millimeter tube, 34 bigger, will take a little bit more torque. So out of your high end or high recoil, not high end, your high recoil weapons, that 30 millimeter tube will hold up just a little bit better. Now, when we talk about ring torque here, guys, one thing that you truly want to look at, okay, is getting either a torque screwdriver or taking it to a gunsmith. The biggest problem we have, or a question that people come to with concerns is, so I torqued my scope down and the first 5 shots were perfect dead on. I gave it a break. The next ones were 3 inches low. The next ones were 3 inches left high. The next ones were, and so they're all over the board. And so I said, okay, well, if they're all over the board, did you check your torque settings on your scope? Well, no, I just took it and I torqued it down. Took my Allen wrench and kept torquing. Well, what happens then is they over torque that scope. And when they over torque that, they have to be able to float in that gas in there. So when that recoil hits, it needs to be able to float and come back to center. The problem is, if you torque it too tight, it won't allow that to do that. So as soon as it starts floating, it locks in one position or another. It ends up breaking that seal inside there. So there's usually 15 to 18 inch pounds is what you're looking at for most scopes. Some are as high as 20. But then, your bases are going to be anywhere from 25 to 30, depending on what type of base you're running. And so make sure that you have those torque settings and get that torqued right, or you're going to have a lot of problems with your scope at some point in time. And again, now, as I said, your gun caliber and your in the shock out of there. If you're shooting something really heavy, say I don't know, 45-70, or you get into a 300 mag, anything, then I start saying, okay, get into that 30 millimeter tube. Run that 30 millimeter tube, not for the long range, but for that torque end or for that recoil. We make a lot of scopes in that 30 millimeter tube on the low end also. We've got your Crossfires, we have your Diamondback Tacticals, and there's a lot of different lines in that Crossfire Diamondback line that you can run a 30 millimeter tube and not break the bank by doing it on those, high recoil weapons. So, kind of look at that and what weapon you're putting it on, how much money you want to spend, and what is it for? Are you going to deer hunt here? Then you look at that Diamondback or that Crossfire, or even just the straight, the entry Viper line. Now, if you're going to start getting into, your longer range stuff, well, now there's all kinds of things that you can start looking into that are that 30 millimeter tube and 34, 36, or 35s all the way up to, your high end in the Vortex line. You're looking at the high end Razor AMG lines, and you can spend $2,500 to $3,000 when you get up into that range of scope for your long distance. So always the other thing is, no matter what you're looking at, try to, if it's a really nice weapon that you're going to use a long time, if you spend $500 on that, look at a scope that's similar. Don't go and put a $100 scope on a $500 gun. Try to look at something that's, $300-$400 or higher, depending on what you're looking at. Because again, you can't shoot what you can't see. So if you have a really nice gun, but you can't see what you're shooting at, it doesn't do you any good. So look at that when you're doing different things, or different hunting versus just long range shooting. Now, the next thing in rifle scopes, if you're looking at hunting versus just shooting or long range tactical, now we're going to start getting into the different reticle options. Are you going to want straight crosshairs? Are you going to want BDCs, your bullet drop compensators? Are you going to want your EMCs? Are you going to, I mean, there's a million different things, and most standard hunting is going to be either your standard crosshair or your BDC. Once you get past that, now you're really going to get into a lot of different options. I mean, there's a million options when you get into long range, because they're going to give you not only your drop, but they're also going to give you your windage. So as you look through one, you'll see a triangle in there. So where that crosshair comes together, you'll see this, all of a sudden this triangle goes down like this, and there's mil dots going out, and each line is numbered. And so the line goes across, plus it goes out just a little bit, then it goes out, and it keeps going. Because as you get farther out, that windage is going to play a bigger factor in it. So when you start looking at long range tactical, that's when you look through your scope and you see all kinds of crazy things in there. And I see a lot of people that just hunt say, I don't want all that because it confuses me. If you're a long range shooter, tactical shooter, you're going to want all that stuff because it's not going to confuse you. So what is your purpose and what reticle options are you going to look for? Then you're really going to look into your turrets. Even if you're hunting and you get into like the Viper line, the Diamondback tactical line, I like exposed turrets. Okay, the difference is, so if you look here, you can see like the turret right here. This is a closed turret on this Diamondback. What that means is there's no numbers on this turret. So if you look at that, there's not a number on there. You can't turn it. You have to unscrew that. And when you unscrew the top of that turret on both sides, then you take that, or capped or uncapped, sorry. That's a capped turret. So you unscrew that because it's capped, then you can turn the turret that's down inside there. If it's a exposed turret, that will have your numbers on it. When you get into your higher lines of scopes, then you get into zero stop turrets where you can turn it. So if you take that and you set that at 200 yards, that is your zero. Now, if you're out at 600 yards, you take that turret and you click it because you can see it on the outside and it says, all right, I need to go 12 clicks or whatever. So you click that, your 12 clicks, then you can take your shot. And then if you need to go back to 200 yards right away, you can take that, instead of turning that, you can pop that up and turn it, and it automatically pops back to zero. So as you get into your higher end scopes, that is what a zero stop, and will bring it back to that zero for you, or that 200 yards. So there's also Kenton Industries makes a exposed turret. With them, they're pretty nice because what you can do, and I've had them build a couple. They build them for Vortex, they build them for Swarovski, they build them for pretty much every manufacturer out there. And what that is when you talk to this Kenton, is you send in, if you're long range, like we on that javelina hunt, we were expecting to shoot anywhere from 200 yards out to 1,200 yards. So when I built those rifles, what I did is I took those turrets, or I took all the specs. So you send into this Kenton and you send in what bullet you're shooting, what grain you're shooting. You take it to a chrono, you chrono that out of the end of your rifle barrel, what your barrel twist is, the length of your barrel, all that. Tell them what you're going to zero it at. They will build you a customized turret that you can put on your top cap where you're up and down, and say, okay, you put that on there, zeroed at 200. that will actually, you can twist that all the way out to 1200 and it'll have all your yardage built right into it. It's like $70 to have that turret built. So if you guys want to get into some long range stuff, that is one option to do it. Otherwise, you can try to do it yourself and buy a zero stop and try to get everything done yourself. But that is one way to do it for long distance. They're also really nice if you're not long distance. It was nice because, when we were out there, my wife's javelina was 405 yards, and we just laid down and turned that, knob to 400, and it was like 410 yards, and said, hold it just a tad, and she cracked it off and dropped that thing. So I used the same gun, went up over the hill. Mine was at about 260 yards. Turned that turret right back down to 260 and crack went off, and it was dead. You didn't have any guessing in there. There's no guessing with BDCs. There's no guessing with anything else. You just turn it, put it on, and let her rock. So that's your big difference between your capped and your exposed. A capped, you can't do that. Once it's set, then everything have to go off of BDCs. Now, real quick on a BDC, if you want to do that a different way, or less expensive way, for hunting, is what a lot of guys will do, including myself. If you take like a 243, my wife's 243, I've got a 270 short mag. I've got a couple other ones that I use too for rifle hunting. And what I've done with those, because I run a straight BDC in there, is I will zero that at 100 yards. And then what I'll do is I'll take each line. So if you look at that BDC on this picture here, you can see the lines. There's 3 lines going down, 3 lines going right. So those lines, and what I'll do is I'll back up to that first line. I'll go to 200 yards and I'll crack one off. Am I high? Am I low? Most of them, depending on what caliber, are about 110 to 130 yards difference in between each one. And that'll give me kind of a starting point. And then what I do is I'll get back and I've got a piece of paper and I'll write on there, this is the bullet I'm shooting, the grain weight, etc. 0, 100, and then I'll go back and put 1, 225, because that's where that one comes in and it's sighted in it. And I'll do that all the way back to the lowest one. Then I can go back, and what I'll do is I'll put that on my stock of my gun and I'll laminate it, and then I'll take it and either tape it to the stock of the gun or put something around there if I don't want to. If it's a really nice gun, I don't want to tape it to it. Put that on the side. It's a quick reference guide. If you want to do it instead of spending the money on the other because you're only going out west once or twice in your life, this is a lot less expensive, and it's great for around here too. You can just pick it up, look at it, and say, okay, this thing's 450 yards, so I know that I need to be, hold the third line down right at its belly. So look at that when you're looking at your rifle scopes and how you want to set those up for your distance and what you're really going to use that for. Now comes the big thing with MOA versus MRAD. If any of you are military, old military, you would have used MOA a lot more. A lot of the newer military and a lot of snipers are using the MRAD systems, and especially across seas military, because it's a meridian instead of a minutes of angle. So MOA is your minutes of angle. So it's 1 inch at 100 yards, okay? So that's what your adjustments are. So you're thinking in inches and yards, and that's what we do here, is we think of that in inches and yards. You get across seas, they think in meters and centimeters, okay? That is your meridian, is what you're looking at for your MRAD. This is going to be 3.6 inches at 100 yards. So if you're looking at a lot of long distance stuff, especially you get into your snipers, military, that 3.6 inches at 100 yards is a lot quicker, a lot faster, and a lot less clicks when you're turning that turret to get to where you need to get to. So they can say, okay, I need to do 2 clicks, where if you're doing it in minutes of angle, you may have to do 8 clicks or 10 clicks. So it's a lot quicker and a lot faster to do it in the MRAD. It's just that it's something that you have to really get your brain used to, because we're so much more used to using or thinking in inches and yards, because that's what most of our scopes have always been. A quarter click equals, or 1 click equals a quarter inch at 100 yards, or, a half. Some of them are half. So they're 1 equals a half inch at 100 yards. Instead, when you look at that, now you go to an MRAD, it's completely different. And you go, okay, 1 click is, not going to be a quarter. It's going to be basically almost an inch. So it's almost 3 times. It is actually a little over 3 times more using an MRAD system. So that's your big difference when people start talking. Do you want an MOA or do you want an MRAD? It's how you're going to think. Neither one is better than the other. Okay, guys, that's one thing, is it's all personal preference. It's all choice. There is neither one is going to say this one is better than this one. It's just that one is a little bit quicker to get to that precise point. That's it. So this is all personal preference when you're looking at these. And these are your common for your hunting scopes. You've got your V-Bright, which has, just a illuminated center. It's got your dead hole BDC that we were talking about, and then your straight V-Plex, or your normal crosshair. They're going to be your common rifle hunting reticles, okay? So now we've touched base on your binoculars. We've touched base on spotting scopes and rifle scopes. Now, we're going to talk about, the difference in price ranges and the out west compared to here, and what you're looking at for spending money. This is where the money comes in, is when you're looking at glass quality, normal versus high density. Okay, so when you see on Vortex Optics, they say HD. You look at Schwaros, you look at Leica, they say EDs on them. What that is a high density for the Vortex. That is not high definition. It's high density and extra low dispersion. Can you go grab my glasses, please? And the reason for the difference in these is that extra low dispersion in this glass. What that does is that changes the chromatic abbreviations. Hang on here. Scotty Mac, this is what happens when we get old, buddy. So, but the chromatic abbreviation, what happens is on a normal lens, it gets real wide, okay? And so that it doesn't get quite as crystal clear because it's bringing in a lot more different colors. It's got a real wide spectrum. And so when you look at your entry glass, whether it is, let's say in the Vortex line, because I know that line so well, let's say you're looking at the Crossfires, the Diamondbacks, they're HD glass, but their HD is not the same as the HD when you get into the Razors or the Razor UHD, because it's more of a lens and the coating, which I believe have coatings after this, but what happens is it's only got one coating for that HD. So it's very similar to normal lens, but it brings that and narrows it just a little bit. But the more glass, the thicker the glass, the heavier the glass, the more coatings on the glass, that actually narrows that and it makes it clear. It makes your edges brighter. It makes the glass brighter. So remember earlier when I said it's all on that exit pupil, but there's a few other things. Those few other things that make the brightness is going to be, some of this glass quality. That will definitely help in the brightness. And what you see as far as dusk and dawn will be how good that glass is. And then you add that with that X pupil size, and now it really brightens things up. Okay, so this is where that money comes in. The more coatings, the better that HD or ED glass, the better the dispersion is on that. Basically what it does is it reflects the bad lights and it lets in only the good light. And so when it's doing that, it makes it more clear. It makes it a lot more expensive, but it also takes that and it'll make it heavier because that glass is going to be a little bit heavier also. But what it's going to do is let in that light, so the transmission is going to be that much greater. It's going to give you a better color distinction. So that's why you look again back to birders. You look at a birder, they go for that high-end glass. They want that really high-end glass because they want to see those colors and be distinct about certain things, especially in that early morning and that, right in the evening. So it's going to be a way better glass for you, but where are you going to use it? Are you going out west a lot and looking through these a lot more? Because out west, what happens with this HD ED glass, because it reflects the bad light and only lets the good light in, you can look through it that much longer. So if you guys have ever looked through glass and got a headache, anybody ever have that problem? I wish I could just see a show of hands right now instead of typing or whatever, but most people, if you go out and buy a $100, $200 pair of binoculars, if you glass for an hour and a half, you'll start getting that little bit of headache, eye fatigue, different things. That's because it's letting too much bad light in. When you get into that high-end glass, you can glass a lot longer. That's why when you go out west with elk hunters and guides, even here in the Midwest, a lot of them are using that real high-end glass because you can look through it that much longer without eye fatigue, without getting headaches, because it's not letting that bad light in. That is where all that expense comes into those. It's better for your eyes. You can glass longer. You can see better. So there's a lot of different things. If you're that normal guy who's going to go out on the weekend for a few hours and glass, 15, 20 minutes on and off throughout the day, any glass will work. But if you're going to, for your eyes and for everything else, if you're going to glass a long time, start moving up the scale and looking at different glass that's out there. If you look at these, this kind of tells you, because of an ordinary lens, the amount of, your secondary spectrum, you can see how it's kind of a little bit fuzzy, not quite as clear, because you're getting that haze in there where with that ED-HD glass, it takes that spectrum out. Again, you can see how much smaller that color is, or that spectrum is, to let things in and reflect the rest of the bad. So again, where that's where that money comes in, is to make that more clear, especially daylight, dusk, and a lot better for your eyes. Oops, I don't want to be closing yet. All right, so some of the additional features here that you're really going to look at when you're looking, again, are you going to go west? Are you staying here? Are you going to use them a lot right here? You don't even need to go west. This is something that you're going to use here a lot. Lens coatings. The lens coatings, like I said, the higher the HD glass or ED glass, the more lens coatings they have on those. what lens coatings they put on them are your light transmitting coatings for which light it's letting in, what anti-reflective they're putting on them, what they're putting on them as far as your brightness, clarity, color accuracy, what types of coatings they're putting on those, how much longer they're baking those coatings on there. There's a lot of different things that go into that. And again, that's why the cost keeps going up and up and up, is the more coatings they put on, the better coatings they put on, the more expensive they get. They also correct that phase. So are they enhancing the resolution and the contrast? As a photographer, I look at that when I look at lenses. How many fins does it have in there? What types of coatings are on the lenses? Because if you don't have good coatings, you don't get the right resolutions and contrast. And then if you definitely don't know your camera settings, you don't get them at all. And so then everything has to be done post work. Through optics, you don't have that choice for post work. You have to be able to see what it is at that point in time. So that phase correction is a big thing. In the higher end, especially when you get into the razor line, they really start getting into that phase correction. And that runs through all of them, guys. This is all the way through from your binoculars to spotting scopes to rifle scopes. And if you look at our lines, because again, I'm used to their lines, so you've got your Crossfires, Diamondbacks are going to be, your Crossfires have your minimum HD coatings. Diamondback has a few more coatings. Then you're going to get into the Viper line. The Viper line has, now you've got a different glass in it. You've got more coatings on it and better coatings. And then you get into the Razor line, which has really good coatings. And then you get into the Razor UHD, which is even more coatings. And then on the rifle end of things, you get into the AMG line. And then that is the best of the best, in the rifle scopes. So, and it goes that way through all of them, whether it's our spotting scopes, binoculars, or what. The spotting scopes, same thing. You've got your Diamondback, you have your Vipers, and you have your Razors. So, and that's one thing, like I said, with that little small spotting scope, that is our Razor line. So it might be small, but I can take that at 11 to 33 power, 50 millimeter, and I know my light gathering capabilities and clarity and stuff is better than what I'm going to get out of, our Diamondback with an 85 at 60 power. Sure, it's not the same power, but it's a lot better glass. Now, as far as if I want that to reach out a little farther, obviously I'm going to go with that Diamondback because that's a really good spotting scope for bang for its buck. And then other than your optical features, you got to look at your construction features, which are they waterproof? Are they fog proofing? What type of gas is in them? Is it purged? Is it just a gas, that they're using in certain ends by the glass and coatings? What's the body, the chassis material? Is it an aluminum? Is it, titanium? What are they using to build that chassis out of? What type of lens coatings are they using? Scratch resistant lens coatings. And then your surface armor on the outside of that. Are they, where are your focus rings? Does it come with a case or not a case? These are different things that you have to look at as far as, your construction features. And again, with each line, as you go up in price, these are the things you're going to get. You're going to get the better lens coating. You're going to get all these things. So it'll be better light transmission, better reflective, better brightness, better contrast. You're going to get better waterproofing. You're going to have different types of gas. So the gas purging is going to be better. Your body chassis are going to be built better. You're going to have more lens coats on them. The exterior surface is going to change a little bit. Most of them are all the same now. But that is where, when you're looking at these, why prices change and why you look at one and go, well, what's the difference between a $200 pair and a $3,000 pair of binoculars? this is what the difference is. The same with rifle scopes, everything else, is what is going into this as far as glass clarity, glass build, the build of the product itself. So, as you're looking for what are you going to use it for? Are you going to throw it in your car and beat it up? A lot of those, I tell guys, go out and buy a $100 or $200 pair of binoculars, throw them in your truck and leave them in there and beat them up. If you're looking for something that you're going to take in a tree with you and you want small, then you look at either like a 6 or an 8 power 30 by 32. Get that light gathering. If you're looking for something that you can use all over the place, well, there's a million options that we just covered. So it's all going to be on your budget. And, so look at your budget, look at what you're going to spend on optics throughout, because you're going to get what you pay for. So bottom line, guys, if you're looking at a $300 pair of binoculars today, and you say, man, I don't know. You know what? If you buy the right ones, if you look at Vortex, again, because I work with them and I work with them for a reason, because I truly believe in their product. They have the best warranty in the business. So you pay for it once, and if you ever have problems, you get it fixed. And so you spend that extra money. Say, well, you know what? I need them today. Do you truly need them today, or can you wait until this fall, use what you have, and spend an extra $200 or $300 to take that next step up and better glass? If you can wait and get that next step up, okay? Because again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you just can't shoot what you can't see. And for guys like me that are trying to manage deer, I want to be able to pick that binocular up and instantly know exactly what deer that is that I'm looking at, whether it's Fred or Bob or Bill or who it is. I want to know what deer that is, and I can't do that with a $100 pair of binoculars right at daylight when it's 200 yards away going through the woods. Okay, I need that glass that I can tell exactly what that is. So I really hope that you guys kind of understand this, that I kind of spelled that out, and it helps you when you're looking for your next rifle scope, or you're looking for your next pair of binoculars, and saying, well, geez, what do I really want? What am I looking for? And hopefully this will help you. A little bit off this real quick before we shut this down and do our drawing is red dots. I didn't cover those a lot, but I will. There's a couple different types of red dots, and a lot of guys like them on their turkey guns with turkey season coming up. There's a couple options. There's a crossfire red dot, which is either raised, you can use it raised or lowered. It's got a knob on the side. We'll set 11 different settings of brightness. The top, and then you can also adjust it just like a regular rifle scope. They are great for turkey guns, especially for your youth, because they don't have to try to line up both beads. They can put that up once it's sighted in. You can put that up, put that red dot on it, and let it rock. If you don't like that big long tube or the tube style, you can go with, there's either the Venom, Viper, or Razor. Again, glass, what type of glass is in it for clarity. Venom obviously is going to be the lower end, then you have your Viper and your Razor. However, the Venom and the Razor are a lower profile, so they're nice for guys that are putting them on handguns. The Viper, a lot of people are using that on their turkey guns because it's raised up a little more, so it's easier to see through there, and for your youth to be able to see in there. And guys like me who had to grab my glasses halfway through, they can't see that great anymore. They're great for us too. So that should hopefully cover pretty much broad spectrum of all the different types of optics that are out there. And hopefully, like I said, I explained what you're truly looking for your light gathering. And so when you go in you'll have a better idea of what you're looking for when you get in to where you are. So while we're getting ready to do the drawing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys send in questions if you have any, and we are going to start drawing some stuff here. Oh, there's right there.
There's just the 4, right?
All right. Yeah. I mean, so should we just like announce Dennis ahead of time, or should we? No, just kidding, Denny. But now, if I draw this, Denny, everybody's gonna think, "What the heck?" But so Michelle is over here. She is mixing up names, doing her thing. So this is for first prize is going to be a Diamondback rifle scope 4 to 12 40 BDC. Oh my God! It is Dennis.
You saw how high I held it. Right?
It is Dennis. So Denny, you are the winner of this. Yeah, just and Scotty says LOL. All right, so next one is Scotty Mac, and Scotty Mac, you've got a new pair of Crossfire HDs, and we've got 4 of them tonight. So next is Michael Slotty. You also have a Crossfire 10x42. You will also, with these, that win these, you will get an All About Optics book. Kind of explains everything I did and then some, maybe even a little better.
And the hat.
Oh yeah, and the hat, she says. And then you get a Vortex hat too. And Jason, you also get another Crossfire 1042. So with that, I will get these things sent out, and yeah, I appreciate all you guys checking in and seeing this. Like I said, I knew this was going to be a little bit different type of seminar, so I appreciate it. And again, if you guys have any questions, concerns, whatever, please just shoot me an email, which I believe you all have my email, which is just art@arthelinoutdoors.com. And Dennis, tomorrow, I will try to give you a call tomorrow or send you a text so we can set up a time to talk about that other. So anyway, again, like I said, you guys, good luck this year. I've got a few questions coming in, so I'll hang out for a little bit. And again, you guys are all welcome, and good luck this spring if you're turkey hunting, because that's right around the corner. And shoot straight, and if you can't shoot straight, shoot often. So good luck to you, and I'll be doing some more of these this fall. So I'll be advertising them again this fall, and hopefully I'll see you then. So take care, everyone. Have a good night, and thank you again. Appreciate it.